Hello and welcome to today's presentation, Improving Clinical Insight, Strategies for Real-Time Point-of-Care Solutions. I'm Kyle Murphy, Vice President of Editorial at Extelligent Healthcare Media and moderator of today's webcast. Today's event comprises a presentation by our speakers and a question and answer segment. Audience members can submit questions at any time during the webcast. Now it is my pleasure to welcome our speakers. Paul Jordan is Industry Consulting Senior Manager at NTT DATA. He is joined by Patrick Kovalik, Industry Principal of Healthcare and Life Sciences at Snowflake, and Brian Kench, Founder and CEO of Calculated Health. Gentlemen, welcome. Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Jordan, as I was just introduced, and I have been with NTT Data for the last 2 years, and I'm very happy to be part of the health plan and life sciences practice that has partnered with Calculated Health and Snowflake and really taken on the needs and abilities of all three companies and turn them full force toward the healthcare industry to take on the needs of providers and health plans and members alike. So today with me, as we were introduced, I want to first throw to Brian Kench and allow him to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Brian Kench, founder and CEO of Calculated Health. Our product, Neuron, is a distributable population health insights engine. We're happy to be a part of this collaboration that brings the awesome power of NTT and Snowflake together. And what we do is try and improve population health in every setting possible, make that an efficient process and help people maximize their quality, HEDIS, risk, and other value-based care outcomes.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate that. And so now I want to throw it to you, Patrick, to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great seeing you again. I always also appreciate the partnership and everything we do, including these webinars. For everybody joining, hi, my name is Patrick Kovalik. I'm an industry principal in our healthcare vertical for Snowflake. And just kind of before Snowflake, I was a senior leader for a major managed care organization in the state of Texas, kind of living my whole life through data-driven insights. So population health, value-based care, outcomes, kind of all peace of mind. And just for the audience, that's a lot of the perspective I bring of how does Snowflake and a data platform fit into healthcare. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I appreciate that. So today we wanted to sit together and have a conversation that included all sides of healthcare organizations, the health plans, the providers, the members, and talk about delivering data to the point of care. A lot of times we have the data that everyone needs and strategically can operate on, but we don't have it at the speed or the agility that we would like to be able to combine that data or do different things with it to deliver better outcomes for everyone. And so I wanted to get in and first talk about some of the issues that we run into on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a yearly basis, when it comes to all the different points of care and all the different people that need those types of data. So let's start by throwing out a question, and I'm going to throw it to you, Brian, first, of what types of issues do you see providers facing when it comes to a lot of the issues with delivering data in an accelerated manner to the point of care?
Yeah, so providers today are facing a myriad of issues, complexities in their systems. I think we could have a whole webinar on that, but did want to hit on a couple that I think we're working as a group to try and address. So, first, and I don't think this is new. This is a legacy problem, but the complexity of the operational and technical or systems landscape for providers. All the different departments, all the different settings, all the different resources, all the different modules, all the different functions. And having to be able to coordinate and work with that and aggregate that data, deliver it to pull it in from where it needs to come from and deliver it to where it needs to go. Really makes their job a difficult one or a formidable one. And so I think certainly complexity is one that we're have seen for a long time and is going to persist for at least the foreseeable future. And so and there's some things that we can do to address that. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Second is the interoperability, right? That's a big buzzword last half decade. So it's always been something that payers and providers and healthcare organizations are trying to grapple with, and we certainly had plenty of things come down the pipe in the last few years. Fire and kind of the rise of the fire standards. CMS final rule. These different kind of integrations and standards that are out there. USCDI, Care and Blue Button, those sorts of things, and then just the variety of ways that not only the provider themselves and those various departments and those various modules and those various EHRs and the primary system and the legacy systems all having to work together, and just being able to take that data in, regardless of the particular format that you might be trying to attain from a standards perspective. There's just that data that needs to move from all those places, and even though distill it down to a lot of the same core stuff. When it comes from all these different sources, there's just different formats, and so that's always a challenge, and trying to meet the needs from a regulatory perspective today, and kind of also take that into the future. And as we know, that's always a transition. It's never a cutover, right? So it's kind of something that occurs over time and evolves. And so that's certainly a key challenge that that we see today. Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, and then getting the complete picture, at the point of care, data silos, things like that. Usually, the provider can only see there's large swaths of data, large amounts of data, compressed time when providers and care influencers are working with members or in this case patients. Getting that complete picture and being able to diagnose what's going on, pick the appropriate treatment, and then try and weave in some of these value-based care outcomes and maximize those can be difficult because oftentimes the provider has a limited view, right? So somebody outside of their system, outside of their EHR systems, somebody goes to a rival provider or something across town, that's not integrated. Into that particular provider, the primary care physician, let's say's system, leaves a gap, and so getting that complete picture is obviously a big challenge historically, and so completing that picture is something they're constantly trying to do, and so that's another one, and then maximizing value based care and risk sharing arrangements, right? I think there's the business of healthcare, getting claims paid and things like that, ledgers and scheduling and obviously the care aspect, seeing patients and things like that. But then there's also this this maximizing outcomes in value-based care, and we see more and more of those arrangements. $1 and $2 I think in America is spent today in a value-based care arrangement. That's going up, and so that's going to continue to go up. And so being able to take the information that might not necessarily be right there at the point of care, or could be outside of that picture that the provider has, being able to act on that is certainly another challenge that we see today.
Yep. 100%. And a lot of those things cross over between the two, that whole communication. And you have providers and payers looking at two different sides of the same coin and trying to come out with the best outcome for everybody. So a lot of those same types of issues can be bridged right over into payer and just stepping on the other side of the road. So a lot of those, you can see a lot of those challenges down here that we have listed into the payer challenges. Brian, did you want to elaborate on any of those? And Patrick, did you have any input? Because I see it from the health plan side a lot, and especially when you touched upon value-based care, risk sharing, HEDIS, risk, stars. We're in the midst of stars announcements as they're coming out. Well, they're out now, but and then looking at what CMS has announced to double down on what value-based care is happening, and their investment in it as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, no, good point. I think there's a lot of crossover, the interoperability, the complexity, that sort of stuff. And I think, additionally, kind of from a payer perspective, what we see, I'm sure you see a lot of this, Paul. A lot of time is spent, just trying to process the data, prepare the data, aggregate the data, and try and draw, some insights from that. And really, when you're focusing on the preparation of it or the reporting of it, right, getting the insights, there's this whole other half, which is honestly more important and needs to be about 80% of the picture. Where we're actually using that data, the healthcare organization, the payers using that data, to help the provider to maximize value-based care outcomes, to help complete the picture, and really being able to leverage that. So, trying to shift the balance. We see a lot of payers trying to do that, shift the balance from, the reporting and reporting intensive activities to really, using or wielding the data. I think digital integration to and from the point of care, which is a lot of what we're talking about today, is a challenge as well. They're a prime aggregator. They can help complete a lot of those incomplete pictures at the point of care. But that takes velocity of data. That takes aggregation of numerous sources and formats and things like that. And that has to be a really tight process that's automated and those sorts of things, so that we can actually get to the point where we can use that data. And so that's another one. And then I think quality, HEDIS, and risk is again something that is a challenge, and we see that both from a quantitative perspective, with things like HEDIS measures, binary, did they get the test or did they not get the test? And then also you're seeing the rise of kind of the qualitative measurement, has your satisfaction with provider and or your provider or your payer or your health plan. That's also a challenge. And so being able to get all the data in, get it processed, and then be able to really address those things are what we're seeing from a payer perspective and challenges there today.
100%.
I
Yeah.
was I was like your take, Brian, because you hit on it. Like just listening to you on both sides, like you can see the parallels of what both sides have as a mission, and whether you kind of knew it or not, you're kind of hitting on the challenges. And they're disconnected systems and that one language of data, and the amount of admin or MacGyver efforts you use to try to make data usable for an outcome or a measure or to deliver better care. So at the anchor of all of your bullet points was still, how do I get information out of all this mess of data? Because the requirements never change, the data never changes. And one of the things I always smile on, like to your point on the provider, I mean, I use this line a lot of just like one of the keys to build trust with a patient or a member is just to have them tell their story once. Imagine even just our own lives, not just our business lives, but when you have a medical encounter that touches a lot of practitioners or locations, how many times you have to repeat everything? So
Right.
whether all these challenges you have, the more you can kind of have that one story, like a true, I probably use that phrase 360 way too much, than even the everyday man. But that's what you're trying to go after, and in the end, at the core of all these points, or the 20 bullet points we did put on here, that's what you're trying to do. Just how do you have that one story that's got lineage for trust and that it's accurate. So anyway,
Right.
I like your points. I like your take.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And to even to both of your points, something as simple as, like, you brought up the satisfaction scores, having to repeat all that information from standard call help representative to one to the next, and not being able to have all of your system populate all of your information at once, and having to put that in over and over again is frustrating. We've all been on those calls where you get transferred to somebody else and have to start all the way from the beginning. Little simple things like that can have huge impacts on your satisfaction scores, how a member feels about your health plan and the service that they get, or a provider and the care that they get.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, and I think time will tell as it evolves, and we look at it. But that's a key driver for those experience measures, is the ability to engender the trust, to have the picture there, to feel like that member knows that about them. It might be one of the strongest tools that HCOs have to address member experience.
yep. And so we've hit a lot on those data challenges that people are facing. Uh, Patrick, what kind of things do you see from a platform perspective that might affect a lot of the challenges that both providers and payers are seeing?
Oh, I think we alluded to some of it. I mean, I get just, at Snowflake, I get to see a lot of industries. I live and breathe in healthcare, but you see just, the growth of all the data that's out there. And healthcare to me is the biggest. I mean, there's some industry standards that say the healthcare data doubles every 60 days or 75 days. And just the explosion of upwards of 80% of it. I was just at a conference last week that talked about how much is unstructured. So when you have to, there's a word on there, FHIR or JSON. You have to be able to now understand what that is, because it's no longer just a dashboard. You've got to be able to translate so many different formats that have new technology standards, and to be able to, make sense out of all of them. So, formats, volume, speed, always comment, like, table stakes on all this is still governance, and security, to make sure that I'm only sharing to Brian what is allowed to be Brian, and Paul to what's Paul. So we're all partners, but it doesn't mean that, even in our world, our ecosystem is just an open forum. So that a lot of that is, and data doesn't slow down. I mean, we just hit on kind of traditional organic topics. We haven't even gotten into this explosion of AI and ML and what you're trying to now do to predict or to influence. And so anyway, that's where the world of, if you're not engaging or tackling the challenges at a data technology system level to actually become digital, you're just getting left behind.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. So I guess we've talked through a lot of the challenges that people are facing. Let's start to talk towards some of the solutions. So Patrick, you mentioned it perfectly, of the challenges that people are meeting, and the data that they need to get their hands on. What types of solutions does Snowflake bring?
Yeah, sure. Snowflake, especially Snowflake in healthcare, this is what we try to tackle head on. Is this, the world of data silos drive everyone crazy, but especially the folks that are trying to design these population health engines, or the outcomes. And so, Snowflake is a cloud-based data platform. We run on all three public clouds, which is another big awareness of, multi-cloud is an absolute reality. And there's just no such thing as either your world or your ecosystem that, can just have everything in one location. So to be able to scale at what cloud brings you for unlimited capacity and scale, and to be able to throttle up and down as needed, not when wanted, that's what Snowflake does well. And then, kind of the boxes on here get into what we call workloads. The days of just being able to say, hey, all my data's here in a warehouse and I can run queries and dashboards. Awesome. Again, that's kind of foundation for us as well as any organization. But now you're getting into modern data engineering and, kind of building, master patient indexes and provider indexes, and the scrubbing and enrichment that goes with that, data science and ML application development, what we call data collaboration, that I'll get into a little bit more too. But at the point of kind of showing all these on one platform, the value is bring your applications, bring your people, bring those workloads to the data, and have one location for it. So no matter what type of format, no matter what type of volume, no matter what I need to do with it, whether I'm going to run Java, Python with with an AI or ML workbook, or I'm running traditional queries, to have it all in one spot where I know my lineage. I've got centralized governance control. So if Brian's going after it, through the Neuron application engine, or Paul, you're going after it through a Tableau or Power BI dashboard that has a native connection to Snowflake, it's still centrally controlled. So the same model I set up for governance and security and classifications, that's able to be seen no matter what type of interaction with the data your teams are having. Because that world of, in a technical sense, hey, my BI team works over here, my data science team works over here, that's bananas. It's no different than the bananas of my behavioral data is here, or my clinical medical data is here. Having knowing where all your data is for an organization is what Snowflake tackles, so that those silos don't become blockers. Silos are dangerous enough, but that's how we see it. And then ultimately, like the outcomes, like, why are you doing all this? The themes here are there. Value-based care is not just add A and B together, or a member 360, provider 360. Like, what's common to all of these things is data, and you need a lot of it. Anyone on this call here who's got a title of data analyst, trust me, they are never happy with as much data as they have. They're like, give me more, give me third-party data. And so actually that's a good segue. Paul, click to the next slide, because that kind of like the sexy part of Snowflake is what we call our data cloud. In specific, this is kind of what a visual of our healthcare life sciences data cloud. And in a normal presentation, kind of this visual, this kind of cluster of connections, When it animates, it's pretty cool. But what we're trying to show is Snowflake's technology lets any Snowflake customer be able to inherently connect to each other, which means you can share data in near real time. Or what it really means is I don't have to share data to Brian through FTP drops or secure email or API calls. Snowflake still enables API calls. So we still fully support interoperability. I can take an HL7 or a Fire feed, but in the end, you talked about it with quality, pop health, et cetera. I mean, when you get into the HEDIS mindsets, you're talking hundreds of millions of rows of claims. That's a game changer if both sides are on Snowflake, and you can actually share that data, at the snap of a finger. Still fully secured, still governed, but I can bring Brian to the data, and he can act on it as if it was local to him. But I haven't moved it. I haven't copied it. So when we're done with our arrangement, I can just revoke that. And so this connection, this ecosystem of what we call our data cloud, lets an organization move beyond just their first party data. How do you find market insights, consumer insights that really are awesome for health equity and pop health and SDOH to say, who is Paul, the person that's almost more of a cohort, like your profile, where do you live, what do I know about you before you've had a medical claim? This is what we see a lot of organizations learning how to go cross industry to help, the solutions that NTT designs and then the platform that Neuron runs on to say, I know more about this patient or this member than just a medical encounter. And that's where you get really powerful. Then you can drive more AI opportunities. You can drive more insights, but that enables you to get real 360 views. So the concept of our data cloud is pretty cool, whether I'm going after reference data sets or, Brian's going to talk about, some of the risk modeling they do. To be able to present that as a service or an application through Snowflake that can just be called without having to have your data leave your organization, and I can still get back that model they built. Anyway, we get excited about it, and we've seen a big explosion. But these dots, these connections, these are live. This isn't just a pretty picture that someone drew. These are people who are connected 24 hours a day to their ecosystem of data, and they're sharing. But this definition of collaboration rather than just sharing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I love this visual from the perspective of you, and you can kind of see the clusters, right? You can see those central points that sprout out to all of those endpoints and those connection points, and if you zoom out in a health system, right, or with a payer, it looks like this, right? There are all these endpoints, both within the healthcare organization and outside of it, that it behooves, if you want the best result, you've got to be connecting and sharing that data, and it's an extremely powerful visual, and and a capability that that Snowflake and its data cloud bring, and that's
Yeah.
a big reason why we're a huge proponent.
Oh, cool. I like it because I think it's a reminder too. It's the same thing what you and Paul talked to me about for years is it's just like in the healthcare delivery side, the encounter with the patient doesn't stop when he discharges or he walks out of the office. It's real. And so how do you handle the point of care, but what next? That's kind of how you look at it with the data cloud is stay connected at all times. And as information is made available to you, you can act on it. You can build more information. So
Exactly.
anyway, you always kind of say it back in a way better than I can, but that's what brought me to Snowflake is because I was always hungry for data. And when you have to wait every 60 days for something to come in a file, you're just like, well, what can I do now? So to get it, at that 60th second, it's a game changer.
Right.
Exactly. And so one of those applications where you can do that and is helping to aid that along is the Neuron platform. And I think the Neuron platform is a great use case and example of what you can do when you can use your data in your system at the speed at which you receive that data and the speed at which that you can get as close to real time as possible. So, Brian, do you want to discuss a little bit about the Neuron platform?
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit more detail here in a minute, but I think the first thing I just want to talk about is conceptually what we're doing, right? So configurability and distributability, right? So what you're seeing here, what we've done is basically say, hey, you don't have to call out for clinical insights anymore. We can bring that capability to you, to your cloud, to Snowflake, to your public cloud, pick one, and deploy it there, right? And reduce those handoffs, increase the velocity of data, and we do that by allowing extreme configurability, right? So depending on whether you're Azure or AWS or G Cloud or things like that, or whether you're have a particular runtime environment you like to use, you like a certain uh, you know uh, runtime or visualization layer, file storage. We allow you to pick that, right? Because we realize that I think as Snowflake does, and as I'm sure you advise, Paul, when you're out there in the field, that ability to configure and have it reside with the tools that your folks use today, and not have to bring in a whole new set of tools, or pass all that valuable sensitive data out and increase the latency and the processing time on trying to get those insights. We're taking that and we're saying, hey, we're going to give the healthcare organization control of that by bringing it to them, and bringing it to them in a way where it integrates with all the components the major components that they use today. And we work with NTT under the Population Health Insights offering, bringing the Neuron engine to that. But really, the power of it is the collaboration of the three parties we have on the phone today, NTT and its expertise in numerous areas, across payer and provider, Snowflake and its platform and data cloud capabilities. We bring that together, and bring it alongside Neuron, and we create this distributable engine that we can bring to you. Quality, HEDIS, and risk are all in there, so it's not all these different modules and things like that. Different charge fee structures, all those sorts of things, different data inputs and outputs. We really try and commingle all of those because they're all important, in every setting at this point. And then we give you, we now give the customer the ability to process the data at the speed that they want, and then be able to, and then as they can accelerate, right, they can automate, take a lot of this manual work off, and then they can start focusing on having their insights right there, commingled with their data, and then use their own secure existing channels, or through platforms like Snowflake to connect the dots and to get that information, to and from the point of care. So, it's a really powerful tool. The client controls it. PHI stays within that environment, and so we're really using that. And we think the entire industry is headed this way. It's a game changer of saying, hey, it's a bring your own cloud. So, you tell us, what sort of platforms you use and things like that. And we can distribute it there. And then, so once you have more control of that data, once you reduce that latency of sending it out, and handing it back, you now have control over it, and you can intermingle that with your other data sources, and then share it with, your partners in your care data ecosystem.
I'd say, Paul, I don't want to interrupt you. I was smiling there because Brian's so calm when he brings this stuff up, but I think I was scribbling down some of these points. I mean, like the flexibility of the calculated health engine, like Neuron, is incredible. I mean, like, so I just had to play that back because again, you're saying, you've got a framework for pop health, you've got a framework for NCQA, like HEDIS measures, but you're saying, hey, like it doesn't end at that. Like you can kind of you've got an open data model that can flex with the customer. If they want to come up with a care gap that is internal just to them or just to that certain demographic or a line of business, hey, build it and we'll be able to model it and support you rather than kind of the grind of just such rigid walls and like, hey, that goes over there. Because again, that's another data silo. So you're breaking that down with that flexibility. Plus, I mean, you're taking me back to my days on the payer side of being able to run then like HEDIS measures and care gaps like on demand. So to know, hey, you just brought in some refresh of some records or got some medical records, and did we close this gap instead of having to wait that 30 days, 60 days? Well, that's fantastic. And then just if that didn't connect the dots, to the folks on the call, what Brian was just talking about, that gets me excited about Neuron powered on Snowflake is all the customers that then also may be on Snowflake too. That data can be collaborated and shared without having to use FTP. Like you can bring in and engage it, interrogate it against the rest of your organization's data with what Neuron said, is a care gap. Because ultimately that's the dilemma. Like if Paul has a care gap, what's the best way to engage with him? To our opening points of like, what are those challenges? What if Paul likes to engage like X? Or what if what if it points him toward this specialist or this PCP, but his relationship is with this one? Sometimes there's more to the story than just the pure data. Like that's that third party data that you can get that you might have within your own walls. So I don't know, Brian, you just kind of hit on so many great points that I love about your engine, but the flexibility of neuron and the concept of even what neuron means in a Webster's dictionary, like that's what it builds. It's real pop health, for an organization to grow. Like it grows, with the business's needs. So anyway, I was just you caught me scribbling down some points. Man, bring
Well,
that up. That's pretty cool.
well, we certainly appreciate it, and we're excited about what it can do. So
And I'm sure
Yeah, and
Paul's
that
smiling because like that's what NTT. I send known Paul forever. He's like, if you can get me to the data, I could be a ninja on a process or like an operational outcome or another app. So hey, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
exactly that's exactly what I wanted to dive into about NTT bringing is one we were really excited to work with both Calculated Health and work with Snowflake to bring all of this to be a possibility for any organization we're going into because NTT has both the technical expertise and the technical services to help any of these organizations integrate something like Snowflake and Neuron on Snowflake into their businesses, but we also have the healthcare and health plan and provider expertise to be able to come in and say, how do we integrate this stuff into our processes? How do we integrate into our people, processes, and technology in order to get this and leverage it to the best of our abilities to get better outcomes, to get the data into the hands of the people who actually need it and want to use it. So all across the board, NTT has a bunch of different strategies to help leverage this data for outreach to members, outreach to providers, to create strategies to help close care gaps, whether that be a HEDIS gap, which is very well measured and very well prescriptive, or is it something like you were saying, internal to the business? Is it something that your health population struggles with? Is it your health population needs help with? And to be able to identify when you get new members, which providers are more likely to be prescriptive and work within those value-based constraints? Which providers and provide that provider 360 view as well as a member 360 view to make sure that you are engaging with the providers that are going to give the best care to your members and ultimately show best care across the board for everybody. So so those are the things that we're just trying to help and engage with the business on. We can also help with reporting, which I love doing reporting. Reporting is my bread and butter and background, whether that is in Tableau or whether that is in Power BI, whether that is in Snowsight, whatever technology you use, Snowflake can help get the data processed by Neuron there and intermingle it with your data and inside your environment. And I think that is one of the things that I want to trumpet home is that instead of sending your data off, waiting that 30 days or waiting that 2 weeks, or having that Herculean lift that is packaging up your data and making sure it's ready to be sent securely. And then, okay, did everything get there in time? Did everything get there and get put back together correctly? And then wait for your data to process and come back. And you maybe not have the granularity in your data. We want to make sure that that's all there and that you have the data integrity and data governance to go with that. Because one of the things that we harp on is setting in part a good practice of data governance that is
Yeah.
aided by the transparency of both Neuron and Snowflake. And NTT has all of those pieces that we want to help coordinate and put together. So whether that is you need help automating, getting the data in from the various sources, because like you guys said, unstructured data everywhere, different formats everywhere. I started my I started my journey in healthcare reading the back ends of 837s. I'm sad that I can still point out certain loops and segments that are important to a claim.
Guilty.
but but we've all been through that and know that those things are still in use and available, even though we're trying to get better. It's a slow and incremental process that not everything is going to shut off overnight. So we want to be able to blend that data and put everything together in a timely manner and make it work within your business because your business is only going to run how you guys are structured and everybody from California to Hawaii to Florida to Maine are going to run separately depending upon what your constraints are. So that's the goal that NTT really put forward and drove home and tried to keep at the center of bringing all three of these platforms and technologies and companies together to make their point. So I really think that was empowering almost to see how well we can get these things to fit together and make them flexible enough that they're actually usable for everybody. So
Yeah. And Paul, one of the things I just scribbled down when you were talking, and thank you too, by the like when you even just mentioned like from Hawaii to Maine, that's also what's so helpful with NTT to help a platform like Neuron or all the customers who are on Snowflake. The NTT footprint is so national but global. Is the benchmarks that you guys have on what is considered quality performance, or especially for your maturity, in a new market or on a new line of business, because that's big too, especially for some of the smaller, regional, clinics or systems or regional health plans that might be on this call. If they don't have a footprint and they only know that one sector, that's an awesome opportunity that NTT also has. Is your data footprint is so big, you've seen and you have those industry benchmarks that then you can, work with Calculated and those customers to say, here's where we need to be, here's what we've seen work well. And so you can kind of go on that maturity curve you were talking about. But I really like your point too on the engagement of sort of third party objectively evaluating the physician network too, or the providers, to know who's going to have the best value to, the metrics and the KPIs that Neuron spits out. Is how do you shift that? Because again, that's again, different practitioners, work better with different member profiles, and that is full circle back to our 360 comment. Is how do you know that? So anyway, I just like that, but I think that my smile there is like just the footprint you guys have and how much you've seen for your strategy and the data that you guys have in your world. It just gives a great benchmark.
Right. Yeah. And just an incredible breadth of capabilities, right? Like a great, glue to the whole thing, right? So, wherever the healthcare organization might be, the competencies are there, whether it's, doing stars improvement and analyzing that, or, checking out the data integrity, or, helping with the ingestion and the automation of that, the sharing of data, and then, all the ops work that can be done. It's an incredible toolkit, that NTT brings, and why we're really excited about the partnership.
cool. I love to hear it. I love to see it. This conversation, honestly, we could, I know I can, and I know you two can probably as well. We could find different aspects of this conversation to nerd out about for hours, but our time here is a little bit limited, and I really want us to be able to get questions from the audience to say, hey, did
Yeah,
we
they're popping
miss
in.
anything, or is anybody interested in what else is going on? So I will ask if there's any questions that have come in through the course of the webinar.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen. We have a few questions from the audience, so let's get into it. First off, what can HCOs do to accelerate data to and from the point of care if they are already facing challenges today to get that data in the current state?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I have a couple of thoughts.
Right.
I don't want to jump in over anybody, but a lot of this, bring your own cloud, right? The expansion of the cloud, right? I know, and we've all been around from the inception of it, so we've seen the rise of it. But this concept of, hey, we don't all need to do this ourselves. There are people that can help us do this, right? And take some of that lift, and we need to take that, not just from data to physical servers in our own infrastructure, but taking that to the cloud, from a data perspective. Now you're seeing a lot of things like Snowflake's platform, or applications like Neuron, that that you can start leveraging as well, right? And I know Patrick hit on a bunch of that earlier on, and what the Snowflake platform can do and what its data cloud can do. Really what we need to see is folks continuing to harness that, so that they can focus on some of the other things, right? Give a little bit of that work out.
You hit on it with saying it's right. Like that's what Calculated does great. That's why Neuron's on here. Is like like there's help out there, because every organization on this call has a day job too. And so when you're struggling with how do I enrich data, or hey, we haven't pulled in fire yet or pushed it out, so what is that, what the heck does that even mean? Start with find partners that can help you get after there, because what Neuron does awesome in the quality, risk, pop health space, that's a way to accelerate. I mean, the other smile I have that a lot of people ask me is like, what makes a lot of customers on Snowflake successful, or just in the industry? And I also just say, they don't overthink it, or I tell you what, the best answer is they do just get started. You can overthink it, and social determinants of health, health equity, pop health is such a broad term, and you're like, well, where is the magic potion? What's the right data set that says who is Paul and his social determinants barriers? There isn't one. This is why it's healthcare, and it always evolves. So just like, also, like, to tackle those challenges, get started. Like, that's the biggest thing I say. Find your champions and just get access to the data and let the data speak to you. And if you find insights, it's just like an AI model. You constantly refactor it and you evolve it and you let it adjust to the population you're going after. And that's what I think the two of you do well, is you help accelerate that. And so then once you have it done, you've been taught how to fish, and then you can go on to that next challenge, whether it's price transparency analytics or network cabling. But anyway, there's help out there.
100%.
Excellent. Next question. Where do you guys see this, at least the technology market going in terms of trends over the next 5 to 10 years? Obviously, population health, as we know it right now, is at a certain phase, certain point where it can only do so much. We need more data. Where do you see it going in the near term and the long term? I don't know who would like to start.
I'll give a start to that one. I see a lot of different things. One is going to be stratification. You're going to keep getting your data cut and asked for it cut to make sure that you're handling and dealing with different social determinant populations correctly and in a non-biased factor. That's one definite way. And then the advent of getting out in front of preventative and preventative things and using AI and ML tools to help. It's not going to be overnight, but it's going to, anybody who can start to get there faster is going to be ahead of the curve once it hits.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Just back up on that. I mean, like in 5 to 10 years, I mean, how about the next 5 to 10 days? Again, like it's the evolution of what more can you do with your data. It's just, the world is no longer what story did my data tell me. It's now, what story is my data going to tell me, or how do I influence it? And so whether it's AI, ML, or how do you pull in LLMs, to start to, interrogate data differently? And ultimately, it's just trying to make it easier on the business who knows the outcome you got to go after. But, interrogating a document that's 150 pages, or a medical record that's, a DICOM image, or, a long PDF from a, physician scribe, or interpreting a call, like Paul, you and I can have a call on at the call center, and, what details can actually get typed in versus like what could an LLM or an AI kind of interpret from everything you said. Like, if you can get to the apex of the problem, that's really where the shift is, that I see. And again, common to it is data of all types and speed, and so who can stay ahead of it. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
All right, let's get on to the next one. How can providers, or what are some ways that providers and care influencers can use this type of data today? You guys started out on the top talking about the volume of data that healthcare generates. So there is data out there. And as you also noted, it's unstructured. So there's some ways to kind of give structure to that data. So where the opportunities lies for, at the point of care, where we talk about having the right information at the right time, really at the right place.
You kind of grabbed my first line there, right? Getting the right data to the right people at the right time, right? And that's the challenge. And so, today, having to call out for these things, having a bunch of different solutions, having to do all the different data and pull that in, not really having the control that you need over it, not really being able to get the velocity that you need out of it. Having a lot of manual processes and things to spending a lot of your wheels on, or your cycles on production, is hindering, right? So, you need to get control of your data, and then you need to, get your insights in a frequency that they can be useful, right? So, gone are the 30 days or more, right? You need to get that faster, right? And to do that, you need to use automation, right? You need to have that data in a place where you can automate it and consistently get what you need out of it. And then from there, it's looking at all of those places, right, wherever you have a patient or a member interaction with a caregiver or a care influencer. You need to be able to be there with value-based care insights, with quality insights, with risk insights, and you just need to be able to put that there. And it's a many hands, in my opinion, it's a many hands make light work situation where, whether they're calling customer service or whether there's some sort of care management intervention, or, they're at a PCP, or you've got a home health agency, going in to work with somebody. Those people need to be able to have that information, because you're already there. So we've got to get away from manufacturing new touch points and new systems and things like that, and saying, hey, let's really optimize what we have there. And that starts with the ability to take control of your data, is progressed by your ability to automate that, so it's a lot less manual work to get it done. And then you crank up that velocity, and then you start to go out and say, okay, which combination of insights, where it, is going to get the maximum results that you need to improve your value-based care and risk arrangements.
You nailed a word that I've been trying to that I think I've been trying to pull out of my head this whole conversation. That's automation. There's a lot of automation that can be happening, because the more automation that you do, the less time people have to do things that take away from care, take away from member experience, take away from the patient experience, and having things automated in the background. I can't tell you how many organizations that you'd be surprised get turned around by, I automated this spreadsheet you've been using that somebody takes 2 hours in the morning to do every day. Hey, we just made a dashboard out of it. It's awesome now. It automatically updates with the information you need every hour. Go do your job. And it takes that whole process to a whole nother level, the work stream to a whole nother level, and allows people, it gets manual things out of people's way. And that is a one huge area that people can dive into in leveraging this data. Is just getting it automated, which is something Neuron does really well, the Snowflake does really well, and puts it in the hands of people, whether that's putting it in the hands directly of somebody who's doing it on their job, or handing it off to something like a UiPath or a RPA solution. So those types of things.
I agree. I'm excited for you've both hit on it, during the call, but I'm excited for the now what, So this doesn't take forever to get done. I don't have to ship this out. I don't have to do all these different things. It doesn't take me 2 weeks to pull all this together. I have the insights I need, and I can get them as pretty much as fast as I can ask for them. And then everything that's unlocking afterwards, and that's really how we're going to get the data to where it's most useful. And again, that's the most efficient way to do it. Let's take what's there and optimize that and start there.
Awesome.
Yeah, it really came back to what Patrick had said about just start doing something rather than not doing something. So we've got time for one more question. And
Okay.
this one is an important one. What would you say to healthcare organizations who like the status quo where they are right now, or happy with things? People get comfortable. They don't like change. I guess, what are the words of encouragement you could give to get them thinking, all right, there's more that we can do, and it's going to be positive.
Patrick, you said something a little while back, 5 to 10 years, 5 to 10 days, right? Like, I think the pace of innovation and, solutions like Snowflake's platform and things like that, and I'd like to think solutions like Neuron as well, right? It's becoming more attainable day by day, right? So these, solutions are coming in, they're taking some of this heavy lifting off, and they're starting to change the model, so that access is there. And the pace of innovation is just going to continue. If anything, it's going to accelerate. That's what we've seen in recent years, and no reason to think that that's going to slow down at all. And so, you can't be flat footed on this. The bar's moving on you. I think everybody saw that with, stars, and it is as an example this past year. People overall did worse, right? As an industry, right? And so that bar is going to continue to move whether you like it or not. But don't worry, right? Because there's I think the technology and the offerings and things like that are coming out, make it attainable to really address the present and those regulatory requirements and things like that, and then start to be able to take some of that, some of the efficiencies that you start to gain there, and put your eye towards the future. And there's a lot of solutions, and Snowflake's a big part of that. Partners like NTT are all over that sort of stuff. You can actually get one foot in the present and one foot in the future, and it's probably best to get after that as soon as possible.
Yeah, I like the question, Kyle, because you're kind of lost in like, oh, I wonder what the motivation was for that question. Are you one of the ones who's happy, or are you kind of frustrated? But so like I hear something like that a lot. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to been in somebody in the industry for a long time. But my answer to a similar question once was asked, that is like what I like to remind people, especially like we're in healthcare. So not sitting still and embracing change. I mean, it's easy to read those LinkedIn articles of like, you just can't sit still, or you're going to be passed by. You're going to become blockbuster. That's easy to talk about. So what I always try to remind is the need for innovation in healthcare is, at the end of it, is a human. Whether you're trying to like make something easier for yourself, a family member, a friend, or some stranger who's got care, either administratively, operationally, or clinically. So I think that is one of the things that makes people, who join this webinar, or the three of us, is there is always a human at the end of it. So motivation is never a dull moment in healthcare, and that's why there's so much of it, is because anybody wants to have a happier life at lower cost, and just ultimately, just satisfaction. And so that's what I do like about the industry, is it's not just like a better widget. There is a human at the end of it. And so that's what I try to do, to say, hey, don't be comfortable. Like, it's awesome, toast, celebrate your wins. You've crushed it. You've become an expert on what you've done, but take a breath, because in the next hour, there's either a new regulatory requirement or a new way to build on what you've done. And so I like the question, Kyle, but that's kind of how I try to answer back to people in healthcare, is remember why you're doing it.
Yep. That's a big one. And I always like to think that if you're in a situation where you believe that you're in a good spot, it's because somebody before you, or even yourself, was pushing forward at some point. So any sport, dance, anything, the first thing it tells you, if you're standing flat footed, you're doing it wrong. Yeah. So you've got to stay on your toes and keep that movement forward. Be on a steady base, but still pushing forward.
Excellent. Well, that's all the time we have for the question and answer segment. And that also concludes today's presentation. A special thanks to Paul, Patrick, and Brian for your time today. Really do appreciate it. And to our audience, we appreciate your time as well. Thank you so much, and have a good day.